Welcome to Rock That Relationship, a podcast about all things relationship with Corey and Tracy.
Now let's get real and start creating relationships that rock.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Rock That Relationship. We are more than excited today about our topic, which is really just about kind of understanding relationships and those internal processes that we go through to understand, kind of, should we stay? Should we go? What does it mean to learn and move on? And we have what I think is going to be the perfect person to talk about that. We have Xander from Ultimatum, the Queer Ultimatum from Netflix on today. And if you haven't seen the show, folks, you have got to watch this. This is an unbelievable opportunity to have, LGBTQ, voices heard and seen. And we're just really grateful, Xander, that you're here today. And just a little bit of background about the show. Probably most people listening will have seen it, but really it's the show is called The Ultimatum. It was originally came out with couples that were male-female identified couples, and was premised on this idea that one partner wants to be married and the other one might be more hesitant or reluctant. And there's an ultimatum given. Each of those partners has an opportunity to kind of re-partner with another person on the show for a trial marriage for 3 weeks. And then from that point on, learns a lot about themselves and goes and repartners with their original partner. The queer version of this was fantastic. It was all mostly like women identified or, non-binary, I believe. And was the same premise was, having a trial marriage with someone else on the show to kind of see what, really the exploration of what would happen. And so it ends with this idea of, is there an ultimatum? Is there a marriage going forward with the original couple? So I know that I probably didn't do that any justice, Xander. You were on the show. I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to, turn it over. Tracy's got our first question for you. But again, thank you so much for being on with us today.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thanks, Xander. We so appreciate it. So I just want to know, what made you choose the reality show as part of your process in working on your relationship? And you can name names because the people who are on the show. Generally, we don't, because we don't want to get sued for our sake. But you were with Vanessa, and you wanted to be married, and you gave her an ultimatum: let's get married, or it's time to move on. What made you get on a reality show?
So the reality show is definitely not something that I would have chosen for myself by any means. It's definitely not in my personality, as I feel like it was very obvious, especially the first 4 episodes. I don't watch television, honestly, that much. I don't watch reality TV. I had to binge watch The Love is Blind before, once I found out that we were on it, because I was like, oh, I need to know some sort of like how this is going to play out. So, basically what happened is Vanessa and I were actually in that predicament where she had kind of recently I don't know, like exact timelines, but like 4 months before she found out about the show, she did basically tell me that she was like, I was like, I'm ready. We've been dating for 3.5 years. I have some like health stuff, and I want to go ahead and have a child like within the next few years. I want to start, like, we haven't really had those conversations yet. Can we start having those conversations for what does that look like for us? How would we do that, etc. And she told me that she didn't have any intentions on that happening for us. Like she wants a family, or she wanted a family, but she didn't want necessarily that with me. So we were kind of in this like predicament where I wanted to move forward with our relationship and she did not. And so when she was, I guess, offered a spot on the show at some point, or so we interviewed for it, and I was like, heck no, that is not something that I want to do at all. And eventually, like, once we like went through like some of the process for like them explaining the show, etc., I was like, okay, well, this doesn't seem like one of those like trash reality shows, or like a gotcha show or anything. So it sounded like it was going to be helpful. And they like I put in like quotes, like said that it was going to be a therapeutic experience and that we were going to be getting therapy on the show. So I didn't know the whole premise of it because also the first season had not come out yet until after yeah.
Wow. Did you get therapy on the show? Was that part of it? Did that happen?
Well,
or was the show itself just therapeutic?
The show, that's what we found out when we got there, is the show itself is therapeutic, which, I mean, in hindsight, like at the time, I didn't feel, I was like very upset about it, but it was therapeutic because I've changed so much since the show and even since it's been aired. So I will say that it was therapeutic, even though I would not be saying that a year ago.
Yeah.
And for our listeners, can you just give a little background? You're how old and how old were you when you guys went into the show? And how old is Vanessa?
Vanessa and I were both 30 when we went into the show, and both of us were, our birthdays were around the same time. We just were 30, and then now I'm 32.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Excellent. Wow. Well, I mean, when you talk about the show being therapeutic, I mean, there were kind of two things as a viewer that stood out. Really what I saw was, the learning that took place over the course of the show. I mean, as a viewer, I'm sure you've had so much feedback on this, is that, you could see kind of a transformation with you through the entire show. But then after, when you got to the reunion special, you had talked about doing self-work too. So you had gone through some type of an intentional process post-show as well. And I was wondering if you could share a little bit about kind of what were those two processes? Did one just pick up right after the other, or did you have these kind of different epiphanies in those different time spaces?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I had actually started therapy myself for the first time a few months before we even got on the show and before we went on the show at all, because that was like the first time because Vanessa and I did not go into the show on a great path, I would say. Like we weren't, neither one of us were really in a good like space to be going on a reality show by any means. So I was kind of working through some of my own stuff, and then a lot of that got brought up while we were filming. So we were alone. Like I felt like my support system was not an option anymore. Like there was just so many things that happened on the show that brought out a lot of stuff for me. And then after the show, just because Vanessa and I had dated for 4 years, so she was, we had made each other like our everything, quote unquote. So it was a big thing to let go of. And then after the show, just trying to find myself like as just Xander and not Xander and Vanessa. So like that was like, like that whole like identity process that people typically go through after being in a long-term relationship. And then from then, like I was like very committed to myself. Like I hadn't been for so many years, and I've been in therapy still every week since the show. I went to like a lot of like retreat things. Like I did a breathing retreat. I got into yoga. I got into pottery, jujitsu, like martial art type stuff. Like just like everything that was going to be syncing my mind and body together. And I did this like seminar that like helped me it gained a lot of tools for like finding myself and feeling like aligning with myself and things like that. So it's been it's a roller coaster of a journey. And I think that I think all of us at some point in our lives experience this in like different ways. Like sometimes I talk about this show as being like a car accident, or like, there's all these things that happen in our life, like something, a catalyst. Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's like something like I definitely needed a change in my life. Like I was losing a lot of my friends because I was focusing on Vanessa so much. My family and I did not have a good connection anymore. Like there was just so many things that were out of balance in my life. And this reality show for like, that's like what it was for me, that like just changed everything up. So I'm just like, I'm so thankful for like where I'm at today.
Wow.
That's
it's so interesting. I was just going to say, it's so interesting that, as you talk about that, when I went through a breakup, that when I met Tracy, It was very similar. Like I created this 44-point healing plan, and I'm like, I'm going to get my life together. And I look back the same, I mean, you described it really well. This idea of this, like this car accident, it was this tragedy at the time, but then it was like, in some ways it's like, gosh, I'm almost so glad there was a reset, right? Like it took the universe to sort of intervene with this reset to be kind of who you are today. And I'm feeling, like I'm definitely relating to you on that and feeling that. And so you must be feeling that like in your body, and just like your whole self probably just feels like energetically different, I would imagine.
So energetically different. I mean, on so many different levels too. Like I feel like I've gotten to because like I feel very lucky because I have a lot of the resources. Like I was able to like maintain my job as a physical therapist. So like, I feel like financially I'm okay. Like I live in this amazing, beautiful place. I have a really good support group here. My family and I have like it's like mind blowing how much like we have been able to like rekindle our relationships and just like even better than they've ever been. So I'm so grateful that I've like for this past year and a half that I've had all those resources to be able to like be on this path. But it's I don't know. It's just like, it's interesting to like be able to like pull apart every piece of you in a way and like go down all these roads that like you feel like you have like issues with. Like just for example, like I realized like I have this like men in general, I have this like huge like thing around that. So forcing myself to go to jujitsu, which is a very male dominated sport, and going in there every day, like knowing that I was going to be the only female there, I was like, okay, here we go.
Wow.
Well, it's interesting. I've got 2 points. One, I was talking to a friend last night whose husband walked out on her like 6 months ago, and I've been a real support for her. And one of her things was she kind of lost herself, and that was a 15-year marriage, 20-year relationship. And you talk about a catalyst, and like, for you, that was getting on the show. And I wonder, had you guys not gone on that show, I wonder if things would have unfolded differently. We'll never know. But, for this friend, she had given up so much of her life, and it was, even though they were both unhappy, she was unhappy. It took him walking out. And she used to call me 3:30, 4 in the morning. She'd be calling me 7, 8 times a day, just miserable. And last night she was like, I'm so happy I'm getting divorced. And I'm like, oh my God, we should record this because you've come so far, right? And it's that process of finding yourself after you're in some kind of situation. And my other thing is the last relationship I was just in was with a person who really didn't want to be with me and wasn't in it, but yet living with me and all these other things. And I'm like, why did I continue to want to chase after that person or be with that person? And so I've gone through the same stuff, and Corey's had a front row seat to that and been a real helper to that. But it's like, something has to happen, even it's very unpleasant. And, to get you to kind of really reflect on that stuff. And the reason I wanted to have you on the show is because I feel like on that show, which I love a lot of reality shows, I love Love is Blind and the first Ultimatum and this one, is that you really actually, I mean, you said you went begrudgingly, but I think of all the participants, you really took what you were being given as a lesson and an opportunity to reflect on yourself. And I really commend you for that, because a lot of people can't do that. And, you probably don't think you're that young, but I'm like, oh my gosh, you're so young. You're doing this.
Tracy, it's probably because you're very old. Why don't we just put it in?
I am very old. I'm
Not
getting
everybody's
older,
as old as you.
older. But the thing is, to do that when you're young, and then you've done this now, so, will help you going forward, right? You're not going to waste the 20 years, the next 20 years mucking around and being with somebody who maybe isn't in the same place you are. Do you feel that way?
Yeah. And I think that was something that I feel like in a way, so we were, the first week that we got there, we were, that was like during the speed dating period. And I'm more of an introverted person. So I actually like spending a lot of time alone and by myself and everything, but it's different when you're forced to do that. So if we were secluded in a hotel room and we would just leave the hotel room to do these speed dating, kind of similar actually as like the Love is Blind scenario, except for that we were actually going on physical dates with these people. But otherwise, if we didn't have any phones or anything, we weren't allowed to like leave our hotel room freely or anything. So it was like a sequestering period.
But were you and Vanessa in the same hotel room or separate hotel rooms?
No, separate. So I didn't talk to her at all.
Wow.
Yeah. From like the moment that I think it was filmed. Yeah, like when she left that first time, I was not talking to her at all. Like I would see her out on her dates while I was on my dates, but I couldn't talk to her.
Wow.
So I felt, and like, because where I've reflected now, like I do feel like that I was kind of in a unhealthy codependent relationship in a way, because that's what we made, like that we both did that. I felt so alone, and I like really hit a lot of like really low points, and I feel like I really like kind of broke down a lot of times like in that hotel room. And I felt like I was like, I needed, like I had something to prove as like to myself, like I needed to get myself out of this, and I was gonna be the only one that could do that. Like no one else is out there to help me. It's just me and myself. So because of that, I had decided like I'm in this, like this is the time that like for me to figure things out, and
being given this time given to you.
Exactly. And I wonder too, because I've wondered that, I've questioned this and like reflected on it before, and I've been asked this, like, do I think that like Vanessa and I would have broken up, or I would be at where I'm at today without the show? And I think that I was in that direction, because I like to give myself like timelines, I guess, like, but I had told myself like if Vanessa and I had not worked it out by January, I was going to be done, and it was going to be hard. And I really do think that I would have dragged my feet, and I think that it would have been somehow more complicated than it was on the show if we weren't on the show, because it was not a healthy relationship. Like there was like a lot of like manipulation and other things too that were happening, and I don't feel like that I was in a strong enough space while I was around her. So I think like being removed from that was the best thing for me.
Wow. So interesting, right? Like, and being an introvert, I'm assuming you couldn't reach out to friends, like you were cut off, right? Like you couldn't reach out to friends or family. So you were like on a silent retreat, except being let out to go on dates and then see your partner dating other people.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. That's like crazy. Cause it doesn't, when you watch it, you don't really see that. Right. And so, but it is like a gift in a way though. Like a terrible gift, but you know, like you were in the situation, so you had to make the best of it.
Exactly. And it was like, I mean, I think like, it's funny that you like mentioned it was like a retreat, because when I was on my like little self-healing journey, I was like, oh, I'm going to go on this silent meditation retreat, which I'm glad I didn't, because I don't think that would have been great for me at that time. It was like too much, but at least with those, like they have tools. They're like, here's like, go do yoga, you do your meditation, and like you had to figure your own tools out on the show, you know,
with nothing, with no friends,
with nothing.
Wow.
Yeah. No therapist.
You could go insane. Yeah. You could go insane.
I felt like I was.
Yeah.
Well, and you just said you're an introvert. I mean, I'm an extrovert. Right. I would have lasted 30 seconds, and then I would have talked to everybody who came to like change my towels in the room. I would have been like, let me tell you my life story. Tracy would have just, you know,
I would have jumped out the window. And I was supposed to go to Japan the year before, and there was the whole COVID thing, and they were like, oh, you could get stuck in a hotel for 12 days. And I was like, no, I'm not risking it. Like if I have to be in a Japanese hotel watching Japanese TV by myself, I will go out the window. Like I can't take it. And if like they don't tell you that stuff before you get on the show, so you're not, I mean, do they say bring like 12 books or bring some notebooks, or did they give you like a packing list?
It's so, no, I mean, I don't really remember actually, but I was already doing my journaling and stuff because I was in therapy. And it's funny, like one of the producers at one point, they were like, what's with all you queer people in journaling? I'm like, what else are we going to do? Like, we're all like losing our minds here.
Right. Wow.
Queer people love journals.
Yeah, exactly.
We like self-work. We have to do it.
Some of us, not all of us. I have proof of that.
Wow. That's true.
Well, so you had mentioned though that you think you probably would sort of at least be maybe where you're at to some extent because you had given yourself a timeline. What about kind of that process of that self-realization? I know that you said it was probably it would have been a little trickier, more complicated particularly because, with breakups, it's like, I had a situation similar where it was like, I'm going to break up. And then it was like, oh, I don't know, maybe I'm not. But like, if we had been forced to like literally be apart with the show, it would have made it more distinct, right? Like I would have known that was happening. So what about your own self process though? Having, if you had done it on your own, were there things that you think definitely because of who you are would have been things you would have done anyways? Like, would you have maybe considered this like silent retreat anyways? Are these things just sort of in your toolbox, or are they really coming from what you learned during the show?
Yeah, I think that they are more innate to me, like because they feel, that's why I gravitate to them so much. With a lot of those things, like I've gotten a lot more into like my spiritual practices and things like that, which is nice because that was so, I feel like I had suppressed that a lot while I was in my relationship with Vanessa, because that's just not how she is, which is totally fine.
Right.
But I've gotten to explore so much more of that now, which I love. And I feel like that I'm really finding like my people and like the people that I connect with the most, like now that I'm in that. So yeah, I think that, I don't know, I think I just really wasn't myself as much, which is strange to think about, like during that, like I was a version of myself and a version of the person that I was with Vanessa, and maybe possibly also like the person that she wanted me to be too, because I think that was another thing that I've realized is that I was also like in that state of like people pleasing in a way too, which I to me feels noticeable on the show. You're always like your worst self-critic, so I've like done a lot of like digging into like, oh, it's interesting that I did that. It's interesting that I said that. But yeah.
So you watched it back? I know some people don't watch it back. Yeah, you watched all the episodes?
So I guess we didn't have to, but so before the reunion, also this is the reason why we all kind of looked pretty tired. Like I was so exhausted because I think I got the tablet for them to allow us to watch the whole show at like 4 p.m. And I don't think I finished until like 4 or 5 a.m.
Wow.
So I watched the whole thing, and then I watched it again when it was aired, when everyone else was watching it.
Do you think that was helpful for you to watch it? I mean, everyone did look shell shocked on the reunion, I have to say. It was very interesting. It was, I mean, I love these shows. I love the Love is Blind, like I said, and I did notice like on this particular season, it did look like everyone was just deflated. Like what on earth happened here?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things going on with that. I think that there was a lot of people that had not spoke in a long time. Like I had not talked to Vanessa in pretty much a year. I hadn't talked to Yoli in many months. Like, so there was like no one knew how they felt about each other.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was just like a lot of like very like weird energy. But yeah, I think that it was helpful. I had a really hard time after the reunion, like after watching all that. I had a solo trip planned for myself, and it got dark and heavy after that. So I'm looking back now, I'm thankful for that period of time, because then that didn't happen while everyone else was watching it. I had already gone through my feelings about how I was, the edited version and things like that, and not having to do that while the rest of the world is watching it, which there is a lot of shows that they watch at the same time everyone else does.
Well, that is hard. And my best friend has a photographic memory apparently for everything that I've ever done. And I'm like, okay, enough. Like if somebody had video of my life, I don't think I could watch it. I don't think I could do it. I don't want to know. Like
she won't even listen to our podcast. She's never listened to one of our recordings. She says,
my voice is really annoying.
I don't like my voice. And I'm like, well, if we want other people to like your voice, I mean, yeah, but
it's more like to see yourself. And, so Corey and I are both extroverts, and we're external processors. And by the way, all of our podcast episodes will really help you in your journey. And that's what we talk about, right? Like we are constantly processing. And so I'm processing everything that's happening to me in real time. And then we process it on the show. But like, it's one thing for us to verbally do it, to watch myself and to see like, and don't feel bad about that relationship with Vanessa. I'm sure you don't now, you've worked through it, but everybody, we've all been that way, right? Like you do lose yourself. I was married for 8 years and took care of my wife's children, and after you come out of that, you're like, wow, I didn't get, I didn't work. I didn't have a salary. What was I thinking? But when you're in something, you are in it. And to me, that's a good thing. And again, like this kind of self-reflection you're doing it's phenomenal, because it really will there's so many people who cannot do it, who are decades ahead of you, or, it took me a long, long time to do this work. And I've told people who aren't doing it, like, they're like, oh, I'll end up in the fetal position, or I'll never stop, crying, or this. And I'm like, okay, for a little bit, but you will, all of your relationships will be better. Friend relationships, family. I mean, you said you've reconnected with family, right? Like everything will be better. Yes, it will be hard. And you had your dark times. And how did you get through those?
Oof. I mean, so many different things. Like I feel like it changed so much, because as I would uncover like one layer, I would need something else. That's why I feel like I was constantly picking something else. Like I would try this for a little bit. Okay, that's enough. All right, and then I'd do this thing. Like I had to just keep feeling out like what felt good to me at that, like during each of those times. So yeah, I mean, it was like so many things. And even like it all came in like phases too. So like I don't have like that big of a family, but I would go, I would try and like work on my relationship with my mom first. Like I couldn't do everything at once. It was like little by little, like me and my mom working on things, like me talking to my therapist about working on my relationship with my mom. Then the next step was my sister, my oldest sister. Haven't even gotten to my middle sister yet. Like that hasn't been like completely rekindled yet. So there's just like, it's just taking it easy, because I definitely wanted to go full force and be like, I'm going to change everything right now today. And it's
right.
like, you get humbled with that real quick. And you're like, that's not going to happen. It's not the way life works. So yeah, so just kind of like feeling it out, and like just having a lot more like gentleness with myself, and feeling like do what you can today, do what you can this week, but also give yourself time to like recover and recoup, and not try and just like push yourself to death.
That totally resonates with me. I think the point that I love so much is this idea of giving yourself time and understanding that not everything is going to work, that you're going to try, or maybe something that you did that worked might just stop working. It might stop feeling good. After my breakup, I did everything. Like it was like this smorgasbord of like self-care. And I got overwhelmed. Like I literally remember laying in bed holding love crystals, literally had gone to the crystal shop, got love crystals, sweaty palm, crying my eyes out, calling for a soulmate. And I look back at that and I'm like, that might have been the darkest moment, because I was willing to do anything and everything. And I think what you're really talking about is important, is kind of slowing that process down, giving yourself some grace, paying attention to what matters, paying attention to yourself and how you're experiencing what it is that you're setting out to do. Because I think so many people try to rush through the pain. They rush through the hurt, or they rush around it, or they don't even acknowledge it. Right. And that's not what helps us transform. And that's not what helps us heal. And it sounds like for you, your process has been more, kind of sustained. And do you feel like there are things that have stuck with you all the way through that, that you started doing towards the beginning of kind of the healing that you're still doing now, more out of like habit or interest, or that they just work?
I kind of have always had this, like, I realized that I have for a long time, I've done a good job taking care of myself. Like I enjoy like exercising. I cook and eat healthy. I usually drink enough water, like all these things that like I like for my clients, like I'm always like, make sure that those are like the top 3 things that they're doing. So I do a good job of taking care of myself, but what I realized that I wasn't doing a great job of is loving myself. That just like wasn't happening, which like, I don't know, like sometimes I feel like so like cliche and like saying that, but that's really like what it is I feel like I was pouring out so much love to Vanessa, or just giving so much of myself, which I didn't even have anything to give at most of the times. So now that I'm doing all these things like my meditation and my yoga, and even like when I do cook and listen to podcasts or music, like I feel like I'm pouring more and like empowering myself to do more things in order to give to others. Even if it's just like listening to like my roommate have like a conversation or her telling about my day, because before I would just like sit and listen to it, even though in my head I'm like, God, can you, like, I don't want to hear any more of this. But like, so yeah.
I think
So
that's so important though. And like everything that I'm doing now in this kind of spiritual way, which Corey, since we met and we talk about on the podcast, like all kinds of weird things have happened, but I actually have been to psychic several times, the same one. She's like right on point, and an astrologer. And it's every message I get is to love myself. And for the first time after this terrible relationship I was just in, like my therapist is like, this is the first time I've heard you grieve for yourself, because really, why am I pouring into an unfillable cup, right? I'm putting all my energy into this cup that the water is just draining out the bottom. And then I'm not having what I need for myself. And when that other person can't give back to you and you continue to give to them, it's really because you're trying to give to yourself. So I don't think it's cliche at all. I think it's what everyone needs to get to. Like that's the most important thing we need to get to, you know?
And I think that also helps like just like with conflict in general, because I feel like when we do start giving to others, when we don't have anything to give, like then we start growing resentment towards them. But it's not even like them, we're the ones giving it to them. So it is like you said, like kind of like grieving yourself and like your decisions that you made.
And your life, like what happened to you in your life. And, you know, now that we've done this podcast, and I was married to a therapist for 8 years, and I could not hear what she was saying to me while we were married. It wasn't until we got divorced. And I had the same therapist in the marriage and then out of the marriage. But for some reason, like I couldn't integrate all of that until after. And so much of this is about attachment stuff that is from your childhood. And I'd be like, oh, my parents didn't affect me. And then I'd have failed relationship. And I was the cause of that, right? And I couldn't see why. And it's because of those things that we need to go back and fix. And I think that's literally, it's for all of us to do that work. You know,
I think it's our responsibility.
Yeah. Because if you love yourself, you're going to radiate out happiness. And if you love yourself, then you can truly love another person instead of kind of being there as their doormat or their servant or their, you know, I'll give to you, but where's for you, you know, like,
exactly.
Who was it? We talked somebody recently, like it's like the airplane analogy. You've got to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you can put it on another person, because if you don't, there'll be nothing left of you, you know?
Exactly.
So I think that's, you're doing work that it takes people decades longer usually to do. And maybe the show pushed you in that direction, and maybe you would have gotten there on your own, you know?
Yeah.
Would you do the show again?
Man.
If you had to do it all over again, would you do it again?
I think I would, because if I really think about it, I mean, it was hard. A lot of parts of it were hard, but I would definitely do it again, because I just can't, I can't really think of anything else. I mean, I know I've done like a lot of the work and things like that. And like, I'm still like grateful for like my therapist and my community and et cetera, but I just can't imagine anything else that can speed up time that much in a way. Like you can get so much done, and I got so much done in 3 months. I learned so much. Like I ended a relationship that I truly did not think that I could ever walk away from, which I think that's like another reason why the show is really relatable, because that is something that I think a lot of people feel. It's like, wow, I don't feel like I can ever, like, I've had thousands of messages of people saying that they resonated like with that, and people that are in similar situations, and they're like, how did you do it? I'm like, well, I don't recommend going on a reality show necessarily, but there are other ways around it.
Yeah. What kinds of things have you responded back to them, or like, do you have any tips for them?
Usually I always recommend seeing a therapist, because I feel like that's like the best thing. Like I can't be anyone's therapist. I'm not, like, I could be your physical therapist, but I can't, like, you know, I can't do any of that work. I'm not like a clinical psychologist by any means. So I usually recommend that, try to find like their community. Like a lot of people don't have as much of a queer community. There's actually not that much queer community here in Hawaii either, but I have lived elsewhere that I have that.
Mm-hmm.
And then other than that, I think it's my main lesson, which was learning to like love myself and align my values with the people that I was surrounding myself with. So like, I don't think, like now, like when I reflect back, like there was so many things that Vanessa like would do or say or et cetera, like on a daily basis that didn't sit well with me. And I would just allow it, because I thought that
Mm-hmm.
was like all I deserved, or there's all kinds of things, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So as you talk about this, you talk about the people that are reaching out to you. We can only imagine that. I mean, you're probably inundated with messages, and so thank you for responding to Tracy's, or be on the show. What's it been like for you publicly? I mean, are you well, both publicly and personally? Have any of your friends kind of reacted a certain way since you've been on the show, or anybody kind of publicly that you don't know? I mean, are you getting a lot of support? What's kind of been your public experience?
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea how it was going to be perceived. And like I said, like really internally struggled after watching myself when I watched the show the first time. So I was just like, I didn't know what was coming. And I feel like I kept like so they would drop the episodes 4 at a time, right? So they dropped the first 4, and I got so much love and so much support. And I was like, this is like the best hug in the world. This feels so good. So validating for a lot of reasons. And then the next 4 dropped, still got a lot of love, which I was like super appreciative for. So I think that's been the main thing. Like I haven't really had, fortunately, too much hate, which just blows my mind. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just beyond grateful. Like every day, like when I just like see more people that want to connect, and they're sharing their stories, and like they want to like learn tips from me and things like that, which is it's a really cool experience that I just never would have anticipated that I would have been in.
Did the people that you already knew, like in your life before, did you tell them like, hey, I'm going to be off the grid? Obviously you had to give them some reason that you weren't going to be contacting them, but, was this like a surprise to them? Was there a lot of judgment before or after the show aired?
I think that there was probably some judgment. I didn't really hear a lot of it. When I would try, like, for example, like after the show, I didn't go into like full detail, but that was another reason why I was like kind of like isolating myself, because I didn't know, like, how am I going to make new friends or try and start a new relationship and be like, by the way, there's this weird thing that's about to happen,
Right.
So,
I didn't very, very, right. Intimate stuff aired.
Right. Yeah. So the people that I did tell, like the biggest question that I would usually get is people be like, why would you do something like that? And like, that just I didn't love hearing that, because it felt like as if I did something wrong, by going on that. So I would say like, though, like when I would start hearing responses from that, even from people that I had known for a while, I was learning a lot of my own boundaries, and I would just be like, okay, can't talk to them as often, so like I would just still like just try and keep the good energy around me, and like the people that were supportive of me and continue to be supportive of me, like during my hard times and during when the show was airing, and now even afterwards, like those are the ones that I maintain like consistent connections with on a day-to-day basis. And everyone else is like, I don't know, like I've had like people like just like from like high school that I haven't heard from years, of course, like reach out and stuff. And, I'll like chat with them, but I don't give them too much. Like I'm not trying to like tell them everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Corey and I talk about that all the time, like an inner circle, and then you have the middle circle and an outer circle. And it's very important, I think. And especially for gay people, like to create community, you're in a different position because you're very well known now, right? But you have to know who you can trust. And I think that is across the board. Like, who can you trust, where you have to set up boundaries, just like you said. Like, I've had people in my life that, so my life was pretty negative growing up. And so I don't want that anymore, because I carried that with me until I was like, 50 years old. And now the past 3 years, I've done so much work. I'm really, truly a different person. And I, like when people say, oh, people can't change. Well, they can, but it requires intention and, seeking out that stuff. But like, who can you trust really? Like, I don't want the negativity in my life. It makes, like, I recognize it immediately now from people, and I'm like, nope, I can keep you out here, but I'm not going to let you in here, because you deserve joy. You deserve happiness. You deserve love. And, I feel sort of similar to you in this relationship you just had and the one that I had, where I was like, why am I accepting these crumbs? And why am I okay with that? And I'd be like taking out the garbage and like, why am I okay with being treated like crap, or garbage?
Exactly.
Like, because you have to go back deep and see, okay, that's why. And I think, a therapist is number one, like a good trained therapist, to let you see that stuff. And it's just, do you feel like this journey, like you're happier now as a person than maybe you were before? You feel better?
So much happier. Like every part of me, like that's a lot of the stuff that like my therapist and I work on, is like the parts of me, like all like, like the 7-year-old Xander and like all this other stuff. Like I feel like every part of me is happier. And
so great.
Like, doesn't mean that like, I still wake up in the morning and like, I'll still feel like shit, or I don't want to wake up, or I don't want to go to work. And like, there's still like all those normal things, right? But like, my whole like internal being has changed and shifted, where I do feel so much happier like in a way, like where I feel like my confidence has improved. I feel like I do feel like my boundaries, like I know how to use those. My communication skills have improved. My tools for when I am feeling sad improved. Like all of those things, like that's what makes me happy. Like it's not necessarily like, that's what I feel like is a huge change, because I used to really rely on someone else to provide me happiness. Like, and now I'm starting to learn how to get it from myself more so.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's wonderful. And, and that's the cool part too, is, like, I think to the movie Jerry Maguire, that you complete me thing. And it's like, I don't want anyone to complete me, right? Like this idea that I'm complete and happy, like you're talking about. And I want to meet someone else who is also complete and happy, because that's also, the kind of the danger is, being all, being confident and happy and everything, and then meeting someone who ends up kind of sucking some of that away. And so that's also part of it is, as you talk about recognizing your boundaries, is being able to draw in and attract friends and connections and people that are whole themselves, right? Or at least working towards wholeness, is that's kind of what we
exactly. And that's definitely my biggest thing, and like what I am like looking for, like in a like future partner, is like, I don't need someone that has all of their shit figured out. Sorry. I don't have anyone that has all their stuff figured out, but like, I just need like to know that they are like willing, able, like, and like ready to do the work, and so that we can also do our own work. So we're going to have our own stuff to figure out. Like, and I also just feel like too, we, like all of us now, like have worked so hard to be where we are today. And I don't want to just give that away to people anymore.
Yeah. Well, that's what Corey says. I'm in my, don't put baby in a corner phase. And like, that I don't want anyone to steal my joy anymore. And even though I just went through some kind of red flags burning nightmare, I was still very happy, and I still maintained myself. And my friends are like, what are you doing? And I'm like, it's got a purpose. I know it. I don't know why, but like, I'm here. And, now that I would say that to that person, it's like, you're not going to take away the happiness that I built inside, but that takes a long time to come to. And again, I love to commend our guests. It's amazing what you've done. Really, like it's phenomenal. And I think you'll appreciate it more as you just kind of see more people in the world and the people who aren't doing it. And, my ex-wife, I would say, well, wow, you're so terrible. You're a therapist and you don't you're judgmental of me for being a trauma victim. And she's like, that's not what I'm upset about. I'm upset that you haven't processed your stuff. And when you don't process your stuff, you basically spew it out on everybody. And I did not see that until it was done to me by somebody else with the same issues. And then I was like, oh, now I get it. Right. And so, yes, maybe that relationship was not the best for you and all that. And I think it's good to see like that person has their own process, but that's not her own thing to do. And you have to be always your own person and say, one of the greatest things I heard was, why do we always get in a relationship and we say, what does that other person need? And we never say, what do I need around, out of this? And I never was that person. I never said that. And I'm getting there. I'm not 100% there, but it's like, what do I need out of this? And then if I'm getting that, then I think, it's a better relationship for both people, because they also need to say that. And you have to come together. And can you just repeat one more time, like in your future partner, what you want? You want someone to do the work. They don't have to be perfect, right? But they have to have a desire to do the work.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think cause what you're saying too is as I do continue to get older and have new trials and new things that are coming at me, I do feel better equipped and prepared that I have the tools. We'll see if they work or not at that time. But if I have someone that I feel that I can trust and rely on and build, because they are solid within themselves, and then therefore we're more solid together, that's I feel all I could ask for.
Mm-hmm. That's fabulous. Well, what's next for you on the horizon? Your this kind of self-empowerment journey, or professionally, or just enjoying Hawaii? What's kind of in your wheelhouse this next maybe year or so?
I've been for a while, I've been wanting to start my own thing and create something new. I keep talking about it in a way of where I'm tired of paying for someone else's mortgage in a way. That's how I kind of feel about working for someone else right now. So I'm just recently created a virtual physical therapy, yoga instructor business. So it's very new, very just getting things, all just the little things figured out right now. But I'm hoping to kind of just let that explode throughout the next year. I'm in a business mentorship right now because I don't know anything about a business. So I'm just getting the experts to help me out. And I just hope to travel. I want to go and see some places and connect with some new people and just kind of see where things take me. I feel I've done so much internal work, and I'm ready to get off the rock for a little bit and go explore.
Yeah. If you could go anywhere, you could take a trip, next week, where would you go?
I am in the process of planning a trip to Spain. The only place that I've been in Europe is Italy. And I don't know, something about Spain is really calling me.
That's awesome. As Tracy and I always say, go with your calling, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Go with your calling. Absolutely. Well, Xander, it has been absolutely awesome to talk to you today. Really, again, appreciate you spending some time with us and, sharing a lot about what you've been through these last, it's been a couple of years now, but just your whole process and really the authenticity that you bring and the inspiration that you bring to the people that are listening to say, again, when people listen to the show, we want them to think, you're not alone. You're not alone. All of us are going through these really tough times, and some of us have found solace in things that work, or directions of, that we can take things to learn about ourselves. And sometimes we end up curled up with a pint of ice cream watching Bridget Jones's Diary or whatever. But sometimes we find things that do work, and anything that can help people feel like they're not alone. We've all, we're all going through this. So thank you again so much for your insight and like I said, your authenticity. Anyways, folks, we are about out of time. We're wrapping up, and we are again in the dating season. I hope you all have enjoyed what you've been listening to, and until our next episode, go out there and rock those relationships. If you liked what you heard, check out our show notes for resources from today's episode. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram under Rock That Relationship, and go to our website at rockthatrelationship.com for updated episodes and more great information.
Thanks for listening. Now go rock those relationships.